In the oppressive darkness of the African night, a desperate race against cruelty was already lost. The beam of a single flashlight cut through the black, illuminating a scene of pure agony. A magnificent lion, his powerful body contorted in pain, thrashed against an unyielding wire snare that bit deep into his foreleg. Each panicked movement only tightened the cruel metal noose, drawing fresh blood that looked black in the dim light. His roars were not of majesty, but of terror and suffering, echoing across the silent savanna. And then another sound, shouts, and the crack of a rifle shot that ripped through the night air. A man, his face a mask of determination and fear, dove behind the scant cover of a thorn tree as the poacher's headlights swept over him. For a single, heart-stopping second, the lion's wild, pain-filled eyes locked with the man's. It was a silent, desperate plea that transcended species, a moment frozen in time under the cold, indifferent stars. This was not a random encounter. The lion was a legend known to rangers and researchers. They called him Shuja, meaning brave one. His magnificent dark mane made him a king among his pride, but it also made him a prime target. On the black market, his parts were worth a fortune, a price tag that invited greed and violence. The poachers had known exactly where to find him, setting their brutal snare near a secluded watering hole he frequented. The wire, designed to hold a struggling buffalo, was slowly and agonizingly severing tendons, cutting off circulation, and ensuring a slow, painful death if he wasn't found and killed first. By the time the man, a local guide named Ben, had stumbled upon the scene, the trap had already done its grim work. The poachers were nearby, waiting for their prize to weaken enough to finish the job. Every second that ticked by brought them closer, and brought Shuja closer to a bloody, undignified end. Ben's mind raced, his heart hammered, back with the only weapons he had, noise and unpredictability. He threw rocks into the brush away from the lion, creating distractions. He shouted, making his voice sound like that of multiple men. A shot rang out, the bullet whipping through the leaves just feet from his head, the sound deafening in the quiet night. He hit the dirt, his face in the dust, the taste of fear metallic in his mouth. Every shadow seemed to move. Every rustle of grass sounded like an approaching footstep. He was one man against an unknown number of armed and desperate criminals, all for the sake of a lion he'd never even touched. Miraculously, his ruse worked. The poachers, confused and thinking they were outnumbered, retreated into the night, their truck's engine fading into the distance. Ben didn't waste a second. He scrambled back to Shuja, who was now panting heavily, his strength waning. This was the moment of truth. Ben approached slowly, his voice a low, steady murmur. "Easy, big guy. Easy now. I'm here to help you. Just stay calm." He expected a snarl, a lunge, a final act of defiance. But instead, the lion's thrashing ceased. His breathing remained ragged, but he watched Ben, his great chest heaving. It was as if he understood. When Ben's hand, trembling slightly, finally touched the wire snare, Shuja flinched but did not attack. A fragile, unbelievable thread of trust had been spun in the darkness. Ben positioned the cutters on the thick wire, but just as he began to squeeze, a spasm of pain shot through the lion. With a sudden explosive grunt, Shuja swiped a massive paw at the ground, the claws missing Ben's arm by inches. Ben fell backward, his flashlight clattering away and extinguishing, plunging them into near-total darkness. Panic, cold and sharp, seized him. He was on the ground, blind, next to an injured and startled predator. He had lost everything, the light, the momentum, the trust. This was it. This was how it would end. But then, his injury, he charged, not at Ben, but toward the poacher's truck. He didn't need to reach them. His terrifying, furious charge was enough. The truck screeched into reverse and fled, disappearing forever. And Shuja, his point made, turned and vanished into the welcoming darkness of the bush. At first light, Ben walked through the clearing. He picked up the severed snare, the wire still stained with blood. It was a trophy, a testament to the battle fought and won. In the days that followed, rangers would report sightings of Shuja. He was limping, but alive, and he was back with his pride. The story spread from the local community to the world, the footage from Ben's recovered camera captivating millions. The image of the lion roaring beside his savior, then charging into the night to defend them both, became an instant symbol of defiance and unexpected loyalty. Ben was hailed as a hero, but he always shrugged it off. He said he was just a man who saw someone who needed help. The emotional truth of that night goes far deeper than a simple rescue. It's a story about the choices we make in the face of darkness, both human and literal. Ben chose courage over complacency. And in a stunning act of recognition, the lion chose not to see a threat, but an ally. That final roar wasn't just a sound of anger, it was a line in the sand. It was the wild asserting its right to exist, its right to be free, and offering a fleeting, powerful moment of protection to the one who had fought for it. When we see Shuja standing tall on that ridge weeks later, his gaze steady and sure, it feels like more than just survival. It feels like a promise kept. It's a chilling, beautiful reminder that one act of incredible bravery can forge a bond that changes everything, and that sometimes the king of the savannah remembers who stood by his side. The days following the rescue were fraught with a new kind of tension. While Shuja was free, he was far from safe. The deep gash from the wire snare was susceptible to infection, made him a target. He received vague threats, warnings to stop his interference. But the attempt to intimidate him backfired spectacularly. The story of the lone guide facing down armed poachers for a lion had already galvanized the local community. Now it ignited them. Men and women who had previously felt powerless began volunteering for the Ranger Corps. A community watch was formed, with farmers and villagers acting as the eyes and ears of the savannah, reporting suspicious activity via a dedicated hotline. The very people the poachers had relied on for silence became their greatest threat. Ben, once a solitary figure, found himself at the head of a movement. "We are not just protecting a lion," he told a gathering of new recruits. "We are protecting our heritage. We are telling the world that this place, and every creature in it, is worth fighting for." A month after that fateful night, the moment everyone had hoped for finally arrived. The Ranger's camera trap captured crystal-clear footage. Shuja, taking down a fully grown wildebeest. There was no limp, no hesitation, just the explosive, coordinated power of a supreme predator in his prime. The wound on his leg had healed into a fierce, jagged scar, a badge of honor. But the most breathtaking part of the footage came afterward. As he feasted, a young male lion, likely one of his sons, approached tentatively. Instead of driving him off, Shuja paused and allowed the younger male to share the meal. It was an act of profound significance. He was not just surviving, he was leading. He was back at the head of his pride, his authority unquestioned, his strength fully restored. The footage was sent to Ben, who watched it with tears streaming down his face. The king was truly back on his throne. Ben's life was irrevocably changed. He transitioned from guide to full-time conservation leader, using his newfound platform to establish a formal anti-poaching foundation. The viral video of Shuja's rescue brought in a flood of international support, funding better equipped power. He looked down, not at the water, but directly at Ben. He did not roar. He did not move. He simply stood there for a long, quiet minute, as if in silent acknowledgement. Then, with a slow, deliberate turn, he disappeared into the golden grass. It was not a dramatic reunion, but something far more powerful. It was a quiet confirmation of a mutual respect that had transcended the boundaries of their worlds. Ben knew in that moment that he had not just saved a lion's life that night. He had helped preserve a legacy, and in return, Shuja had given him a purpose that would last a lifetime. The story ends not with an ending, but with a cycle, one of protection, respect, and the enduring hope that one act of courage can forever alter the fate of the wild. The legend of the man and the lion began to weave itself into the very fabric of the region's identity. Tourists, once content with simple safaris, now arrived asking for Shuja's territory, hoping for a glimpse of the famous lion who remembered his savior. This newfound interest created a sustainable, economic alternative to poaching. Locals found employment as specialized guides, trackers, and in hospitality, their livelihoods now directly tied to the protection and well-being of the wildlife. A woman who had once lost goats to predators now ran a successful lodge, telling guests, "That lion is not our enemy. He is our guardian. He protects this land, and in turn, he provides for my family." The value of a living lion, they discovered, was infinitely greater than that of a dead one. Poaching wasn't just a crime. It was an attack on their community's future. Ben's foundation, the Shuja Initiative, grew beyond anyone's expectations. It wasn't just about anti-poaching patrols anymore. They launched a successful breeding program for endangered vultures, whose populations had been decimated by poison-laced carcasses left by poachers. They established a mobile veterinary unit capable of responding to injured animals across leveraging every ounce of his experience and sheer presence, saw off the challenger without a fatal fight. It was a display not of brute force, but of undeniable authority. He had survived humans, poachers, and injury. A young upstart was no match for a legend. His victory was a relief, a reaffirmation that the balance he represented would hold. One quiet afternoon, Ben was reviewing footage from a camera trap near the perimeter of the reserve. The video showed a young Shuja, barely more than a cub, playfully pouncing on his mother's tail. It was a glimpse into a past before snares and poachers, a moment of pure, innocent life. As he watched, Ben was struck by the profound circularity of it all. The lion he saved had now sired multiple litters of cubs, each one a genetic repository of his strength and resilience. His legacy was literally roaming the savannah. By saving one life, Ben had helped ensure the survival of an entire bloodline. The snare had been meant to end a story. Instead, it had become a brutal prologue to a saga of survival that would echo for generations. The story of Ben and Shuja never truly ends. It evolves. Ben, now graying at the temples, still walks the paths of the reserve, though he leaves most of the tracking to a new, younger team he trained. His role is now that of an elder, a storyteller. He speaks at international conferences, but his most cherished audience is always the wide-eyed children of his community. He ends his talks not with a finale, but with a question. "Shuja is out there right now," he will say, pointing toward the vast wild horizon. "And so are others like him, who need guardians. The question is, who will be brave enough to stand for them?" As the sun sets, casting the acacia trees in long shadows, a deep, familiar roar rolls across the plains. It is no longer a sound of pain, but a declaration of existence. It is the sound of a king who was saved and the man who was found. It is the everlasting echo of a night when